online at 560theanswer.com. Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer with Dan Proft and Amy Jacobson on AM 560. The Answer.
Top of the morning, Dan and Amy. Kamala Harris, in her eulogy to Sheila Jackson Lee, the recently deceased congresswoman from Texas, almost had a slip. She caught herself.
Uh-oh. And as a leader who believed deeply that America's true and full history must be acknowledged and honored, it was Sheila Jackson Lee whose bill made Juneteenth a federal holiday, which as a United States Senator I was proud to co-sponsor, and then as Vice President, it was my honor, with the President, it was my honor with our President Joe Biden to stand beside Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee as our president signed her bill into law.
Yeah, she was grinning like a Cheshire cat with that little almost slip. But then, to prove that Joe Biden does exist, they came out together to welcome Evan Gershkovich, the Wall Street Journal reporter, and other Americans held hostage by the Russians in that prisoner swap yesterday.
Yeah, and she spoke, Dan, for the first time of this campaign without a script, and it went exactly how you'd expect.
This is just an extraordinary testament to the importance of having a president who understands the power of diplomacy and understands the strength that rests in understanding the significance of diplomacy and strengthening alliances. This is an incredible day.
Yeah, it's important to understand diplomacy so that you can understand diplomacy.
And the strength of the diplomacy that we are understanding, Dan. First time in 11 days.
Paul, I thought I was listening to Kissinger. Bret Baier is the host of Fox News Special Report, weekdays, 5 p.m. Chicago time. He's also the best-selling author of To Rescue the Constitution, George Washington and the Fragile American Experiment, as well as The History Club, Duel Across Time. Bret, thanks for joining us. Appreciate it.
Morning.
All right, tell us who her running mate's going to be.
I don't have the inside scoop. You know, all three of the finalists, believed to be finalists, canceled all their events this weekend for interviews with Vice President Harris, and that's Mark Kelly, Andy Beshear, and Josh Shapiro. You know, the launch event happens in Philadelphia, so there's a lot of people saying maybe it leans towards Shapiro. Either way, any one of the three of those tends towards the moderate side of the party. And, this is part of this evolution that they're trying to do on the 2019 race of what she said and talking about policies. I agree with you guys focusing on that little extemporaneous answer. That's literally the first question. Yeah. And I think it was, how do you feel? You know, I would like a probing question, like, how do you feel about this? And that was the vice president's answer. So it behooves her, I think, to do more interviews, and we obviously offer every day.
No, I don't think it does behoove her to do more interviews. That's the problem, isn't it?
I mean, it can't be like being in the basement. I mean, this is a different time. And I think, most times you would have a primary. You would have a vetting process. Mm-hmm. You would have a lot of interviews, a lot of questions, a lot of rallies. This is a 90-day sprint. And so far we haven't had access.
I wonder just on the VP thing for a second. Everybody's looking at it just one direction, who she's going to select. Any of those finalists you mentioned or others being rumored that that there is an effort to persuade them to be interested and they're recalcitrant? We'd really like Mark Kelly, for example, but we can't seem to get him across the finish line.
No, I think all three of those are in.
Okay.
I do think Roy Cooper from North Carolina pulled himself out of contention, and she has the closest relationship to Roy Cooper, and he's a very successful governor in North Carolina, a state that they want. So something tells me that that sales job didn't work.
Well, do you know why he left the race?
I don't. Although he put out a statement early on, I think he's happy being governor, and maybe getting involved in all of the national focus. It is a lot in 100 days. But listen, this race is essentially where it was, I think, on June 26th before the debate. I think that it's tight. It's probably coming down to 6 states right now. And in those 6 states, about a sixth of the population. So then again, you're about 300,000 votes in a country of 330 million.
There's, as I'm sure you have felt, there's a lot of anxious Republicans because of the hagiographic coverage that Kamala has been getting until since she effectively became the nominee, and with their convention still in the offing and the prospect of getting a bump out of their convention. A lot of people are nervous. There's a lot of recriminations that are being bandied about publicly with respect to J.D. Vance. There's some talk that Trump and Vance are too aggressive. They're too focused on things that are not material. A lot of criticism of Trump's remarks at the National Association of Black Journalists this week, getting into Kamala Harris's heritage. Is that sort of also being largely ginned up by parties and institutions that are interested in seeing Kamala Harris succeed? Or do you think there is a problem within the Republican camp with respect to both Vance specifically and the messaging of both generally?
Well, I think it's a broad question, but I do think, the former president sometimes is his own worst enemy, number one. Number two, I think that the J.D. Vance selection is done. I mean, they made it. It's not going to change. And for all these people saying, well, you could pull him off the ticket and do a change, it's not, one, worth it, and two, really feasible. And I think that basically this is surviving Republicans, these news cycles. And there have been a number of really good news cycles for Kamala Harris, let's be honest. I mean, this hostage deal the exchange is really good for the administration. The money out today, she's raised more than $300 million in this short amount of time, and has more money than Trump does in the war chest. I mean, that's a big deal. But again, the policy stuff is something that hasn't been addressed. And they can put out statements till the cows come home about how, no, she's really for fracking now. But until you hear her make that jump from what she said on camera numerous times in 2019 as a presidential candidate to this new position, I don't think that it's a sold deal. So I think this is a tight race.
It's not only fracking. I mean, single-payer health care, no longer into mandatory gun buyback program. Do you know who her new handlers are who are releasing this information on a daily basis? And
well, she
positions?
accepted. She took the Biden campaign team, Jen O'Malley Dillon and others. So all of those people have changed stripes and are trying to make her like old Joe Biden, the old moderate Joe Biden. I mean, in positioning. I'm not sure it's going to work. I think she has to sell it. And listen, there are so many issues that on policy that are available for Republicans to go down that road. So I think it's a distraction to be detoured by these comments about ethnicity and other things.
She's old Scranton Kamala.
There you go.
Scranton Kamala. Yeah, well, although, to be fair to the Trump campaign, too, their first big TV ad was about her time as the Borders Arena. So,
yeah,
that in terms of the macro messaging. Something on messaging, so many people have talked about this since weird became the watchword of the left for at least the week. And the the mashups that populate on social media, where everybody on MSNBC and CNN and even liberal pundits on Fox and stuff are literally saying almost verbatim the same thing. And I just, you talk to people who see some of this, everybody say, like, do they literally have a central office where they send out a memo that everybody gets, or a morning email, and these are the phrases you must rinse and repeat today? I mean, when you see that, yeah, how do you explain it?
Automatically, you read that these talking points have gone out from on high, and they're really good at sticking to the script. And everyone, to your point, sticks to the script, but it's almost too good, because you look at all of these different sound bites and you say, this is ridiculous. Figure out a different way to say the same thing, but don't say it exactly the same. Otherwise, it looks like you're robots. But clearly weird was the substitute for threat to democracy, and that was not sticking.
Yeah, it was weird and creepy. I threw in creepy as well.
Yeah, but the other piece of that you just mentioned, the pivot away from threat to democracy, save our democracy, that is sort of interesting, because they were committed to that for some time.
Well, she hasn't mentioned it once in her two rallies.
Once you anoint a nominee and don't have any votes, the democracy thing is kind of out the window, as far as an argument. She'll be the nominee without any Democrat votes actually for Kamala Harris. So I don't know if that's part of it, but it was not sticking as far as being something that was taking a toll. Now she's shifted from threat to democracy to fighting for freedom. And then that goes an entry point to reproductive rights and abortion.
Where do you understand the back and forth that they've had publicly about debates, including Trump on Laura Ingraham this week saying, yeah, I'm going to debate, but not ABC because, they're nasty and so forth. Do you have any backstory on where that is and how that may come together?
Well, the former president has agreed to a debate on our network, and we're waiting on Vice President. She's agreed to ABC on September 10th. I think it's going to be earlier than that, if I had to guess. And I think that they're going to get to a conclusion. We hope it's with us, but either way, I think it's going to happen before early voting starts.
Is it your sense there'll be just one or more than one?
That's a good question. I know there'll be one. In my heart, I know that they're going to come to a conclusion on one. I don't know if there'll be two. I hope there's two. I mean, for the good of for everybody. And if you have one in September and you have one in October, it starts to feel like you really had debates.
Bret Baier is the host of Special Report, Fox News, weekdays 5 p.m. Chicago time. Best-selling author of To Rescue the Constitution, George Washington and the Fragile American Experiment, as well as The History Club, Duel Across Time. Bret, thank you as always.
Thanks. See you guys.
Thank you, and have a great weekend. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
Are you turning 65 and thinking about Medicare? Or are you over 65 and haven't enrolled yet because you still have coverage at work? Either way, Medicare done correctly will be the best health insurance you will ever have. Imagine having an annual deductible of only $240.